All right, so I'm just getting a few things set up here real quick, make sure everything's working, checking audio and things like that, just to make sure I am up and running correctly. But today I'm going to set up Pop! OS. I've never used it before, but I'm going to use it to show how easy it is to actually game in Linux now. I think with the 2004 release of Ubuntu, a lot of changes have been made that makes gaming on Linux super easy. So let me first jump over to a new screen here. Here we're going to look at my display. Let me get that out of the way there. All right. So I did very minor prep work for this. I went ahead and I downloaded Pop! OS already, and you can see here they have two versions. The first version has the Mesa driver out of the box, and then the second version has the NVIDIA drivers already set up. It's my understanding that sometimes NVIDIA can be a little difficult to set up, so I just downloaded the version with the Mesa driver since my test machine here has an AMD graphics card. And since I had never used Pop! OS before, I had to see on Windows how I make the installer key. And it told me to use Belena's Etcher. I usually use different tools, so each version of Mac OS can be a little bit different. I tried to use Rufus originally and it didn't work. I just assumed it would work. So I use Etcher anyway for Raspberry Pi and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and unplug my headset real quick, and I'm going to put a USB key into my computer. And we're going to flash from file. Let's go into my downloads, and here you can see Pop! OS. I downloaded it a few days ago, but I had to verify my channel and go through a few steps to get YouTube to let me stream live, and they finally lifted the restrictions today. So I'm going to hit Belena. The only drive I have is my Kingston Data Traveler, and I'm going to hit flash. So while that is burning, I am going to go ahead and check over here, make sure everything is still going well. So far, so good. It doesn't look like the stream has disconnected or anything else has gone weird. I got a new text, it looks like. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and go just verifying with the third party to make sure my audio is working. But I'm going to go ahead and close this now while we wait for the flashing to complete. I play a lot of games through Steam and Epic, mostly Steam, but you can see a couple of the games I've been playing is Ark Survival Evolved and Trials of Mana. Hopefully I can get one of those two games, probably Trials of Mana since it's Steam, to work. And it looks like I don't have audio. It looks like I have audio. Hold on. I may have a problem with my stream. Hold on. Give me just a second. I may not have a problem with the stream. I may have sent out the wrong link. Oh. Okay. She said it's working now, so I think I had originally gave her the wrong link. Hopefully it's working now. Oh, and all right. There we go. So while this is flashing, really quick, there's a lot of computers online that people are trying to use very inexpensively, and I bought an HP Z620. The computer itself has an 850 watt power supply, so I didn't have to do anything in it. But when it comes to HP, they have these adapters that you can buy, or you can make your own power supply adapter, and then you can put in any power supply and adapt it if you need to. But I bought the adapter, and then when I got this computer in, I realized it had two 6-pin PCI Express connectors, and I didn't need that because the video card I'm using is an RX 470, and it uses a single 6-pin connector. So altogether, I spent about $400 on this computer, and it's going to be a great gaming PC. The only thing about it that's off is it's using 24 gigabytes of ECC RAM, and I don't want to change that out because it does have a Xeon processor. It's a Xeon E5 2609, so a little bit older processor, but I think it's going to work great for what I intend to do with it. I don't know. Let me pull up a quick picture of that real quick. Let me pull over this window here. Oops. Hey, I'm typing with the wrong keyboard. I have two computer keyboards in front of me here. So if I hit images, this is what the Z620 looks like, just out of context here. Mine only has a single computer processor in it, which gives me this top shroud here. The secondary processing card is covered, but you can actually get a second processor and have it be an actual 2-core Xeon system. And I don't have the second card, I only have the first card. And I did buy mine used, but one of the things I made sure of is that I had all 3 drive cages when I bought it to make sure that I didn't have any problems mounting drives in it. And then mine does not have these feet on the bottom. They were broken off. I don't know if it was broken off before I ordered it or what, but when I got it, it only had 1 foot, so I took the second foot off, and the tower sits flat on the floor. Okay. This flashing process does take a little while, so I do apologize for that. But while we're waiting, I recently did build a new computer. So the computer that I'm going to be running this on, it's a Ryzen 7 3700 system, and I've got 16 gigs of RAM in it right now, but I will upgrade that to 32. It's my opinion that 8 gigs is the minimum amount of memory you should buy on any system, and 16 gigs for games. But a game like Ark Survival Evolved, it loads all of its resources and it doesn't shut them off. So as you wander the map or you have multiple people, more and more things get loaded and they never unload. And people say that that leads to memory leaks and memory issues. So having 16 gigs for a game like that is great. But recently Jedi Fallen Order said that you're going to need 32 gigabytes of RAM, and there was a lot of pushback, and so they changed that to 16 gigs of RAM on the recommended specs. So I'm really interested to see how Jedi Fallen Order is going to play out, but I'd recommend always having 32 gigs of RAM in a gaming system because it's not going to be long before we hit that point. I think 1, 2, and 3 gig graphic cards are dead. 4 gigs do kind of work for now, but I think 8 gigs is where you need to be on a graphics card at the moment. And this particular variant of the RX 480 that I have is an 8 gigabyte card. Alright, this is a USB 2 drive, so I'm just killing time while we wait for it to go ahead and do its thing. But when I built my Ryzen 7, I did play Computer Shuffle. I don't always buy new computers from scratch, 100% from scratch, I should say. My Ryzen 7, when I bought it, I knew I was going to be reusing my power supply, which is only about a year and a half old. I was going to be reusing my NVMe storage, because I have a 1 terabyte NVMe drive. And then I was going to reuse my mechanical storage. So when I bought the computer, I got a new case, I got a new processor and cooler, and new memory. And then I also reused my video card. So I have a NVIDIA 1070 Ti. And then with what I kept, I did push my old system to my son. So he now has a Ryzen 5 2600, but he's using an RX 560 in that computer. He does have 32 gigs of RAM since that used to be my computer, but I bought Corsair Vengeance Pro RGB RAM, and the old RAM was Corsair Vengeance, and it just didn't match in the new build. So that's why I still only have 16 gigs of memory in here. And then I took my son's computer and I pushed it down to my daughter. So she now has an i5 6600 with 8 gigs of RAM. And I don't have any DDR4 RAM to put that in dual channel, so I'm going to order an 8 gig stick and bring her up to 16. But she just recently started playing Ark Survival Evolved with us, and she's not really interested in AAA games. She plays a lot of Minecraft and games from PopCap, like Peggle, Bejeweled 3, those kind of simpler games that never required her to have a more powerful computer. She has been using Lenovo workstation. It's an M81, and it had a GT 1030. And when I'm done with this HP computer, it originally had a GT 710 in it. I think I'll put the GT 1030 in this computer when I set it up permanently. And I think I'm going to set up an Ark server at my house for us to play on as a family. And both of their computers have 250 gig solid state drives for boot, and then they have storage drives. My son's is 2 terabyte because he plays a lot of AAA games, and my daughter's is only 500 gigabytes at this point. But if she starts getting into AAA titles, I'll have to upgrade that when I can. Okay. So we're getting close now to having the USB drive validated. I am using a wireless keyboard and mouse, so when I go to boot up the HP, I might have to reboot it a couple of times because it doesn't always pick up the boot menu key. And I know F9 and F10, one is the boot menu and one is the BIOS. I don't always remember which is which, so I might have to reboot a couple of times. But what I did on this computer is I took all the drives out of it, and then I put in a solid state drive to boot from, and then I put in another drive, 2 500 gig drives, because I had a bunch of them. Alright, let me go ahead and eject that flash drive, if it's going to let me. Maybe, maybe not. Oops, that's not what I wanted to eject, but that's okay. Alright, I just ejected my whole USB hub. So let me come back over here now, and I'm going to switch to the computer view. Alright. Okay, so I'm going to try F9 first and hope that brings me into the boot menu. So what I was saying with the hard drives is I put 2 500 gig drives in here, and I did just put them in RAID 0 to turn them into a 1 terabyte volume, just for the purposes of this demonstration. I'll put my original storage drives back in there when I make it into my permanent server again. But in this boot menu, I need to open one more piece of software. I can't quite see what I am doing here at the moment. Okay, I'm going to use UEFI to boot to the Kingston Data Traveler, but back to my drives, see if I can finish that story, because I'm like a chihuahua. I lose track of what I'm doing pretty quick. On the drives, I put in a solid state drive and then those 2 500 gig drives. And like I said, I rated them together. I did install Ubuntu and downloaded Steam. And then I downloaded a bunch of games to my secondary hard drive as an attempt to hopefully, once I get everything set up, we can start playing games right away. I just didn't want to waste, hours of downloading video games while we were trying to do this live. So hopefully pre-populating the video game library using a different version of Linux will be okay, but we'll see what happens. And while we wait for this installer to finish, I've never gamed on a Xeon before. Like I said, this has an Xeon E5-2609. It is a 2.4 gigahertz processor, so it's a little bit slower than anything I've used. I actually haven't had an Intel CPU in most of my personal computers since I bought my AMD Athlon many years ago. I think a Pentium 4C was the last one that I had. Alright, let me put the main systems mouse down and use the one on the HP. But I've been using AMD since before they were cool, if you want to say it that way. I really like AMD processors. I think they're a great value. And now with the Zen 2 architecture, the Ryzen 3000 series, and here the upcoming 4000 series, I think they are an amazing... they're an amazing value. Alright, so I'm going to do a clean install. And it should give me a second to ask me about my drives. Okay, so I want to make sure that I install on this ADATA SU635. This is my solid state drive. And then you can see right here I have the two Western Digital 500 gig drives. They're matching models, but then it's calling my RAID array a Linux software RAID array. That's actually a hardware RAID array. Alright, so let me make sure I select the SU635 and hit erase and install. And I'm not going to encrypt the drive. I don't think that's necessary for this particular install. On a secure installation, a work installation, it may be worth encrypting your drive, but I'm just going to be using this as a secondary computer anyway for video purposes, and when I do make it a server, that's when I'll care about encrypting it or adding any security. So again, I chose Pop! OS for today because I've never used Pop! OS, and I wanted to have an experience that was new to me and new to you guys as the viewers. So I don't know exactly how to navigate the operating system, so there's going to be a few things that I'm going to have to find and a few things that I'm going to have to change where I will stumble during this live view. I use Linux Mint. I love Linux Mint. I think it's a great distribution. It meets all of my needs. I usually download the Cinnamon desktop, but at some point I typically change it to KDE because I like the K desktop environment, and since they quit making their own version of that because Ubuntu has the Kubuntu version, I would use that, except there's some things that Canonical has done that I just don't like. For example, snap packs aren't fully open source. Snap packs are the Ubuntu canonical only version of the software, and I think that kind of defeats part of the purpose of free and open source software. So I think flat packs are a better way to go from an open perspective. But if you're looking at snap packs, they're great, the way they package software, the way they work, the way they use, and it's very successful. So it's just not for me personally. And like one of the choices Canonical made, if you remove snap packs and then you go and try and install something, it may install the snap packs behind the scenes, so you don't even know that it puts snap packs back on there if you didn't want to use them. So I'm very careful when I'm in the Ubuntu store to make sure I'm not selecting the snap versions of anything when I do use Ubuntu. But the word in the web community says Pop! OS is a great gaming system from the ground up, especially if you have NVIDIA cards, and that I'm going to have to say that distribution doesn't really matter that much to me. The base, whether it's Red Hat, Debian, or Arch, etc., that'll really dictate how you do most anything. But because of the way Linux works, you can customize and change pretty much anything. That's why Mint has Ubuntu as a base, but then goes in and changes a bunch of stuff that they didn't like. For example, GNOME 3 isn't really my cup of tea. I don't like the way that Unity worked. So using Cinnamon or Kubuntu made more sense for me personally. And it's really up to you. Linux is about choice, so definitely find a base package that you like and then customize it till you're happy with it. So again, this is a USB 2 key. It's a little slow. I apologize. But things should start to pick up once we get through the installation. And like I said, I've never used Pop! OS, so hopefully this will be a good experience for both of us. But again, this is based off of Ubuntu 2004, and just based on what I've read, based on what I've experienced, it's my understanding that some of the things that Canonical did to Ubuntu in the 2004 release made it very useful and very stable for gaming right out of the box. I don't know what all those changes are. I'm still trying to wrap my head around some of it, but today I'm going to be using the Mesa drivers, which I mentioned earlier. I do want to use the open source version of the drivers, not the proprietary AMD drivers. And then once I have Mesa done, in the past a couple of times I've had to add the Vulkan drivers for Mesa as a separate thing, but we'll see if they get installed automatically here. And then in the last version of Ubuntu that I used, there was some weirdness with my video card. Alright, I've removed the USB key, so when we get signal again, we should boot straight into Pop! OS on the hard drive. But I'm not really sure what to expect because it didn't ask me to set any options. I didn't set a password or anything, so I am a little confused. Okay. Alright, so Pop! OS is continuing setup. So it looks like you install on the hard drive to a point, and then you can go through the installer. And at this point, I'm going to assume because System 76 develops their own hardware and designs their own machines, that their installer does this process so that they can install on their own machines. So I'm going to go ahead and hit next. Typing is US English. I'm going to shut off location services for now. I don't really need GPS, but it already knows that I'm in the Mountain Time Zone. I'm not going to connect any online accounts at this point. Alright, so I'm going to put my full name is Richard with a username of Richard. Alright. Set my typical password here. Okay, I can't tell what it's doing, but for the purposes of this, I'm going to come back into the streaming software here, and I'm going to shut off the webcam for a minute. That way we are not seeing anything obstructed. Okay. So it looks like Pop! OS is using the GNOME 3 kind of switcher, which is fine. Let me drop down to the terminal, and it looks pretty normal as far as I can tell. So it looks like they have a Pop Shop. That might be the software store, which is great. So the first thing I want to do in the Pop Shop is type in Steam, and we will install Steam. I'm not sure which is which. This looks like the newer icon, so I'm going to go ahead and hit install on the top one. And then, as with any Linux distribution, you have to authenticate. Hopefully I typed the password correctly there. Okay, so now that Steam is installed, let me go ahead and hit show all applications, and there we have Steam. Let's let it update while we're working. It did just notify me that I had some updates, and I was hoping, oh, there we go. So the notifications are in the middle there. Like I said, I've never used this before. So it looks like we're going to have a couple operating system updates in a moment. Steam should not have the package manager locked, so let me go ahead and hit update all. If I was installing, I think I typed that wrong. If I was installing from the package manager back in the store, I wouldn't be able to update and do Steam at the same time, but since I'm finished with the store, it's all good. Okay, so the first thing I want to do now is go into settings, if I can find the settings app. I might need to look into system or yeah, here, disks. Okay, so we do have a disk program. GNOME Disk Manager is kind of looks like this. But what I want to do is this volume 0 array right here. I want to mount this. So let's edit the file. No, I don't want to edit the file system. I want to edit its mount options. Okay. So I don't want this to be defaults. I don't want this to show in the user interface. If it's showing in the user interface, you can usually eject it. I'm going to leave everything as default for now, but I want to simplify the naming to just call it volume 0. That way this drive will always mount in the same spot with an easy to read name. Volume 0 will remind me that it's my RAID array, and I don't have to worry about trying to remember what its UUID is. Alright, and the file system on this is X4, so I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Alright, so let me close that. And what is the file manager called? It's just called files, it looks like. Alright, so let me go back to the root directory. How do I go back in this one? I don't see file systems. Again, I've never used this version, so I don't quite know what I am doing. Looks like it found all my Windows Network stuff. So I'm just going to open computer here, and then I called it mount, and it's empty. What did I do wrong? Do I still have disks open? I can't remember if I closed it or not. Alright. Oh, I forgot to hit start. Okay, let me edit my mount options again. I'm pretty sure it was X4. Well, it created the folder. Well, that's kind of interesting. I'm not sure what's going on here. Alright, I might have to re-download some stuff here. And where was it mounting them to? Dev. MD. Yeah, so you can't display volume 0, so those are just the block devices. There's MNT. Let's see, let's look under media. Nope. And I don't see a full mount folder, so I'm not quite sure what's wrong. I've never had this problem before. No, everything looks good. I'm not sure what's going on. I've never had a problem with my RAID array before. But it knows it's ext4, so let me check the file system and see. But you can see it knows it's an ext4 file system. So it says it's undamaged. So why won't it mount? What am I doing wrong on the mount? Let's see if we show it in the user file system. Let's just use session defaults real quick. It's really not what I wanted to do. Interesting. I've never had this problem before. I have no idea what's going on. We're going to do so I'm going to guess at this point that something with the file system didn't quite transfer, whether it's related to the RAID array or what. Alright, so let's edit my mount options again. Again, I don't want it to show in user interface, but alright, let's try this one more time. Okay, so something about the old Linux system to the new Linux system didn't like what was going on in my system. So now if I go into mount, then I have one of these two, uppercase V or lowercase v. I'm not sure which is which. I should have paid more attention to typing. Sometimes I forget that in Windows it doesn't like yeah, so it's uppercase V. So let me alright, so let me log into my existing account, and you will see my Linux credentials here in just a moment. But I need to pull up my password manager. So let me go ahead and do that. I use a password manager so I can have a unique password for every single system. And again, I'm using two keyboards, so sorry that was very confusing. And I don't have my phone with me, but I use two-factor authentication, and I need my SteamGuard code, so I'll be right back. Alright, we're logged into Steam. And the reason I went in and made sure I knew where my secondary volume was is because with my small solid-state drive, I wanted to make sure that I could guarantee my games were going to be in the right place. So if I go into Settings, in Downloads, I want to go into my Steam library folders, and I'm going to add a library folder. And again, it was under Mount, capital V. Whoops. And then we're going to do a new folder, leave it default Steam library. I must not have rights. Oh, yeah. And that's kind of a problem that I've seen with Steam on multiple. If I hit close here, it'll let me hit OK there, but for some reason it doesn't allow you to do anything. All right, so I don't know how to do this without going to the terminal, but as a new user you may not like the terminal, and I'm sure there's a way to do this without the terminal, but like I said, I just don't know how to do it. I'm going to get rid of lowercase volume 0, and then I'm just going to quickly add read, write, execute bits to everybody on the system for that folder. So if I do LL again, you can see now that volume 0 has got that weird green color, meaning it's writable by everybody on the system. So let me go ahead and close out of the terminal again, and now let me add my library folder. And we should not have a problem this time. Alright, so now we're going to set that as default. So now what's going to happen when I go to install anything in Steam, it is actually going to install on my mechanical drives and not my solid state drive. As you can see, there's a significant difference in size right there. Okay, then the last thing I want to do is go to Steam Play. And here under Steam Play, by default, enable Steam Play for any supported titles will turn on for anything that Valve has actually tested to be compatible with Steam Play and Proton and Steam. But if you check enable Steam Play for other titles, if you hit the checkbox, it'll let you select a version of Proton, and you can select the latest version 5 or go back to some older versions if you want. I'm going to leave it at Proton 5 for now, and then I'm just going to hit OK, and I'm going to go ahead and restart Steam. Oh, I forgot to have it remember my password. So this time let's check that box so I don't have to keep typing it. And I can't talk and type at the same time, or I will end up saying or doing the wrong thing. Alright, we can close this now, and I'm going to go to Library. Alright, so here we are in the Steam library, and if I just click the language, or the little penguin here, it'll reduce me down to games that run in Linux, and you can see the list is really, really long. Let me go back into my settings here just real quick. Remote play. I'm going to uncheck enable remote play. I don't want anything streaming by accident while we're doing this. I want to run these games from Steam. If you have certain games, especially games with DRM like PUBG, I think. I don't play PUBG, but PUBG might be one of them. They don't run in Linux at all because of the DRM. So make sure that you know what's going on as far as DRM games, because you'll have to use Steam Play and play them from a Windows machine via streaming, or you will have to play them directly on a Windows machine. Alright, so I'm going to download a small game. This one is called Slay. You can see it's only like 45 megabytes, but just to double check, it is mount volume 0, so it is going to my mechanical drive because I set that up. And once it's started the downloading, I'm going to hit finish. Another one that would be good for this, let's do Fallout Shelter. That one should be a pretty small download. And one thing, just to show you, if I scroll down here, it should let me go to the store page. I thought it was close. Maybe I passed it. Huh. Alright, let's go to store real quick. And I'm going to search for Fallout Shelter. So Fallout Shelter is a free-to-play game. I started playing it originally on my phone, but then I started playing it on PC, and you can see right here, this game is only supported in Windows. That's one of the reasons I'm going to use it to demonstrate that it works here in Linux. And the other game that I started to download was Slay, and Slay is from Sean O'Connor, and I don't even know if it's still available, but it comes from Sean O'Connor's Windows Game Collection. He actually wrote a bunch of games back in the day. Alright, so I've downloaded Fallout Shelter. I'm going to hit play here, and it should go through the initial setup just like it does with Windows, but it gave me that message that it's going to run through a compatibility layer, which is what I expected. And let's get our first Windows game running on Linux. So, as you can see, Fallout Shelter just popped open, and I didn't have to do any real tweaking or configuration to my system. The only reason I had to change the drives is because I have a unique setup with that RAID array, and I wanted to control how my systems worked. Okay, so if I go into settings, I don't want to be windowed. Let's go full screen just for the heck of it. So you can see that that worked just fine. I'm going to shut off the music and the sound. Since this is a live stream of a game, I'm not sure if it's copyrightable or not, but I'm going to hit Enter Vault, and it gave me my vault from the last time I played, but let's just create a new vault. And I'm going to take the random number just for the heck of it because I don't really care about this vault. But let's let it go ahead and come up so that you can see the game running. And then I'll jump out and I will download a different game. Okay. So my vault has started up, and I can't drag anybody in the vault yet because I don't have any living quarters. So if I hit the hammer, I select living quarter, I hit build. We'll throw in our first living quarter. Then it told me it wants power, so I'm going to build power. Next, I'm going to throw in a diner. And then the last thing I need is water. So now I've got everything, built in here pretty good. And so we're going to select this first guy here, and he's got a really good strength. And a guy with good strength will work for the power generation. This young woman is pretty average, so let's drag her just into the thing to get her moving for now. Here's another average person as far as stats go. This person has a little bit higher strength, so let me go ahead and give him some power generation. This person is perception is the highest, so let's put him in the water room. Agility is going to go straight to the dining room. And then finally we have one more person with a great perception that'll go in the water room. So in Fallout Shelter, some rooms have bonuses. So when I select a diner, you can see it's agility. let me shut off tips. I don't need the tips. The diner has a high agility. Then you can see if I select the power station, not the person, people with a higher strength will do better in the power generation. So if I look at this person again, she's got a great endurance, so I would put her in a different room later on. And then we'll look at this person. So let's go ahead and we'll take the person with the endurance and leave her as a guard at the door. So that's the first game, all working and going well. Oh, and I already have somebody else coming that would like to join my vault. So I'll start the process to drag her inside, and we're going to go ahead and exit the game now. Save and exit. All right. Something that's kind of small-ish. Let's download Fallout 3. It's 8 gigs, which is smallish compared to some of my other games. But Fallout 3, it doesn't like to work on Windows 10 without some tweaking sometimes, and I can play it here on Linux without any problem. And Steam no longer supports Windows 7 and below, Windows XP below, something like that. So this actually helps me play my old games and gives them a good life. So I did download and install Slay. So I'm going to go ahead and start up Slay. Again, this is another one of those Windows games. Like I said, it came from somebody named Sean O'Connor who had programmed a bunch of Windows games. And I've been playing Slay since I first discovered it ages ago. Probably the first time I played it is on 95 or 98, many, many years ago. It seems like it's running, but nothing's happening. Oh, there it goes. All right, and it's the same thing. I want to go full screen. Let me turn off my sounds. I thought there was graphics settings, but maybe not. All right, so I'm just going to select the first island, and we'll go expert. So the purpose of this is to take over the territory, and so each turn, I have a flag here that tells me I have an available move, or if I don't have enough money to buy somebody, the person will stand there jumping until I move them. So like if I put him here, he can still move, he's jumping. So I'm going to combine some territories together because we need to be able to gather some strength. Okay, do I see I have another one down here? I can't move up there. All right, so it doesn't look like this version of the game has the strength, but when it comes to strength, the peasant is considered 1 and a house is 2. So until I get a pikeman who can take a house, I can't do anything. But let me zoom out a little bit, make sure there's no red dots up here. That means I don't have any. So I'm going to hit end turn. And since this is an expert level map, I have to be kind of decisive and quick in my actions. And sometimes it's better not to take a territory and just hang out for a turn to gain some money. It really depends on your play strategy. Yeah, see, I can protect all of these hexagons around me, so if I move this guy, I lose the protection of quite a few squares, and since he doesn't have any pikemen, like I have a pikeman here and there's a pikeman here, he can't take anything. And then right here, I don't have a lot of options, so I'll want to try and expand these guys up and connect these two territories together before I make any changes. But this person doesn't have any place that he can move. Every place is either protected by a hut or by another peasant. And I'm sure I want to end my turn. Alright, so I'm going to take this square, and then I'm going to take this square. Alright, so because I took that hut, you can see now that it actually allowed me to combine those two territories. Trees, when there are two trees side by side, two pine trees, they'll grow into the next square. So you've got to make sure that you're managing trees. On the edges of territory, there are palm trees. I don't see any on this map right now, but these grave markers will turn into palm trees on the next turn, and they'll start to grow every turn around anywhere that they can touch water. So once they were to hit, say, this square here, then it'll start to grow around all of this water as well. And trees can quickly overwhelm you. So for every square that you have, you gain 1 gold. If you don't have enough gold to survive, then your men will die. So you got to balance your territories. Okay. And again, this guy can't go anywhere, so I'm going to end that turn and say yes. Let's check on our download for Fallout 3. It says the download is queued. Why is it not still downloading? Okay, it's a good thing I checked it, otherwise we'd still be waiting for it to download. Alright, so let's go back to Slay. There you go. You can see the pine trees now all have changed, and I missed that those were going to be palm trees. So I have to deal with them now, or they will be a constant nuisance to me. And then as soon as I take out the hut or the last person in an area, it'll stop growing and expanding. So basically these territories are no longer a threat. And I'm just going to keep playing this game until Fallout 3 is downloaded. So you can see it didn't take much. I installed Pop! OS, I installed Steam from the store, and then I started downloading my games. And right now, unfortunately, my prep work didn't work. I don't know what I did wrong with that. With those downloads, why I had to reformat that partition, but I'm gonna guess it had something to do with setting it up on a different version of Linux and then installing Pop and doing something that was user error. Alright, so I'm gonna cut this territory in half just to gain a small advantage for me. If I cut this in half, there's only 4 squares here, so this particular territory is going to gain 4 income, but it costs 6 income to maintain a spear person. So if they don't have enough money stored up in their hut, they're going to die on the next turn. Alright. And I can't take that. Alright. Let me check back at Steam again. So it's still got a couple minutes to download, so we're pretty close. Again, I'm just killing time with Slay here until I can launch Fallout 3. Alright, let me end this turn. I'm going to shut off those warnings real quick. Okay. Oops. No, I don't want to exit the app. I want to change the settings. Okay. So here you can see he killed somebody. Probably was intentional. Alright, so now I'm going to start expanding my territories a little bit more aggressively. This guy will die on the next turn. Okay, alright. Now that I've combined a few territories, I can take a castle and place it here. You need a knight to take a castle or any territory that's protected by a castle. So this is a great place to put it to protect this side. Any of these people can't come in here until they get knights. And it costs 18 income to build a knight. So the computer won't build a knight until they have a decent sized territory built up. Alright, and then I kind of want to keep myself alive, so I'm going to throw another... Oh, Fallout is done downloading. Alright, so we're going to end the game of Slay here. Just go ahead and close that and say yes. And we're going to let Fallout 3 set itself up. those first two games, while they use DirectX to Vulkan translation, they're just not as heavy hitting on the system as Fallout 3 or some other game like that. That's why I want to make sure I showcase a game like Fallout 3. But you can actually see I'm gaming on Linux with almost no barrier to entry at all. And again, I think that is a result of the work of the Linux community and was more widely available in a distribution by default starting around that 2004 release of Ubuntu. Okay. And this is probably going to be terrible because I have a wireless keyboard and mouse. So, and I'm streaming. So we'll see how this goes. Oh, .NET version 3. I thought that would install by itself. Because I thought that's what it was actually doing right there, is installing .NET. So we'll see what happens on Fallout 3. And I show the HP is still ticking away. It's still thinking about something. But that error that I just got on Fallout 3 may be messing with us. If it doesn't work here in a minute, I can close it down. And then we can talk about something else. Alright, so while I'm waiting, one of the things that we tend to do is benchmarks. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to download Unigine Heaven. So Unigine Heaven does have a Linux version and a Windows version. So I'm going to download the Linux version. It's just going to save in my default downloads folder. I really would have just rather have saved it somewhere else, but it's okay. Alright, so while that's downloading, Unigine also has Superposition and Valley. Let me go ahead and download Superposition as well. We'll just download those in the background while we are waiting. Okay, let's go back to Steam. Let's see what we got going on. Did Steam crash on me? No. It just doesn't do window switching the way I expected it to. Oh, see, it never did download it. But it just told me it downloaded. Hold on. Let's exit Steam. Let's try this one more time. Alright. Fallout 3. Yeah, so it does say it did download. That was weird. Computers. If they behaved like they were supposed to, we wouldn't need computer support. Alright, so it looks like it did just have a weird issue. Alright, so we've got high quality, and then I'm going to hit play. Again, I've never had Fallout 3 crash before like that. So again, that could just be a timing download kind of weird issue. So you're now seeing what I'm seeing, which is just a black screen. So did it really not get completely set up like it was supposed to with that .NET error? I'm having some problems that I didn't expect. Alright, let's download something else then. Let's let it download and I'll start talking about something else for a second. I'm going to go ahead and force quit it. I'm not sure why that crashed. So you're just seeing exactly what I see, that sometimes things can be a little weird. Alright, so let me open the containing folder here. I'm going to move to. I'm going to go back to the root. Yeah, see, that's what I expected to see earlier. I'm going to go mount volume 0. And then we're going to select that. And then I'm going to mount volume 0. See if I double click on that, will it do anything? Well, what is it doing? I can't tell what it's doing. So it's just going to take me a few more minutes to download Tomb Raider while I run this. Oh, that's what it was doing. Okay, so that didn't work. All right, let me close that. Okay, that file is too big to open in a text editor. This is another one of those things that is kind of a terminal thing. So it needs to be run as a script to actually uncompress everything from that file. And then it will uncompress Unigine into a folder. And then when I go into that folder, whoops, I must have hit caps lock or something. I can't tell. There it goes. All right. And then I just run Heaven. So here is the Unigine Heaven benchmark. And I'm going to go ahead and hit Run. And I'm going to run through this benchmark one time for you. And I'm going to see if Pop! OS does a weird display thing that I've seen in Linux a few times. If it runs like it's supposed to, it should detect my video card and say that we have 8 gigabytes of RAM. If it messes up, and I don't want to say that, if it has the display glitch, because I'm going to just say it's a display thing, then it'll say I have 256 megs of RAM. On older computers, there was a setting in the BIOS called the AGP Aperture, and as far as I can tell, this is kind of the same thing as that, even though we're using PCI Express. But your processor, your processor has to allocate so much memory to talk to the video card. And in some programs in Linux, I see that they're reporting 256 megs instead of the 8 gigs. For some reason, they're reporting that aperture size. I don't fully understand why, but Unigine Heaven was one of the programs that was doing that to me. And then there is like the Superposition and the Valley. I believe when I ran those benchmarks, they actually reported the full 8 gigs. And there's a couple Linux commands I can run on the terminal to show that same kind of behavior, because the graphics card has its 8 gigs, but it's not addressable by the CPU or the system. So I think it's just reporting the AGP the aperture size instead of the video card size, if that makes sense. I may be wrong in how I'm explaining it, but that's my current understanding. I just may be using the wrong terminology. And this benchmark does take a little bit to run with its 26 scenes, but you can see that even here in Linux, running Unigine Heaven, it is running flawlessly. Right now we're averaging 63 frames per second, and I believe that this screen is running at 1080p. So in my case, on my Windows machine, I game at 1440 typically, but on all of my other systems, I'm gaming at 1080p. Even my Linux laptop is running at 1080p, and I want to upgrade it actually. I had to jump through a few hoops to get things working on my laptop, and I still have a few issues with my fans running full speed all the time. And I'm hoping upgrading from 19.10 of Linux Mint to the 2004 of Linux Mint will solve that. If I still have Mint on there. If not, it's Kubuntu, and I have 1910 of Kubuntu and need to upgrade it to 2004. I haven't pulled out my laptop in a while. With this global thing that's been going on, I've been spending a lot of time at home, so I've been using my desktop a lot. And we're up to scene 18 of 26. I wonder if I cancel this, if it'll show me the CPU, or the GPU usage in memory. I don't want to take the chance, because I don't want to cancel it halfway through. And then end up having to run the whole thing again. So far, the minimum frames is only 8. I've run this before on this hardware combo and had that get down as low as 3 frames per second. Again, it's hard to know what might have been going on in the background. Different Linux version, different kernel for sure. I actually don't know what version of the Linux kernel I'm running. I could suppose I could look that up here in a second, but I'm guessing it's going to be version 5 or version 5.3, something like that. All right. So here we go. Yes, so it did do what I think it was thought it was going to do. So it does show that I'm an unknown GPU, even though this is a Radeon 470. This one's a 470, 8 gig. But it says I only have 256 megs of RAM. But it's performing just like it's supposed to, just like I would expect, right in that 1600 plus or minus range. Let me go ahead and close that and quit this program real quick. Okay. Let me go ahead and close that. So you can see 3D acceleration is working. Do we have this one? It's not quite downloaded yet. Let me drop to the terminal. And if I go uname -r, I'm running version 5.4. So we're running kernel 5.4 in Pop! OS straight out of the box. I haven't rebooted since I did the update, so that is what the 20.04 release of Pop! OS came from. If I'd run that update and then rebooted, if there was a new kernel, I'd be running on that. So definitely not running that. And then here's one of the things that I was talking about where that display anomaly, we'll call it, comes from. If I use dmessage and I grep for DRM, DRM is the display rendering manager. It's how the Linux kernel talks to the display. You can actually see right here, if I scroll through this, the PCIe GART. So I called this the AGP Aperture. You can see it's got 256 megs, but if you look at the AMD GPU, it does show that I have 8 gigs of VRAM available right here. So again, it's a display thing. So the first time I ran across it in Linux, I was really confused, thinking that it was using 256 gigs of my 8 gigs, and that's just not the case. And here you can see it's using the Polaris 10 architecture. I don't even know if there's anything in here that says AMD Radeon. I've actually never looked for that. But yeah, just AMD GPU everywhere, yeah. But yeah, just be aware that it's purely a display thing because of the calls that are being made, that it shows this PCIe GART of 256 megs instead of the full 8 gigs of memory. Just one of those weird things in Linux gaming that I ran into. Okay, so it looks like now Superposition has finished. So let me go ahead and copy it over and go back to the terminal. We'll do the same thing. We're going to add the execute permission to Unigine Superposition. And then I'm going to go, we're going to run Unigine Superposition. And it'll go ahead and extract that as well. So let's let that extract and go back into Steam. Oh, yeah. Let's go back into the activities of Steam. It just doesn't seem to be running. You see how Steam seems to be locked up here? I thought I saw a notification that it was done downloading. Is it just me, or is it behaving weird? Oh, now I don't have a Steam window anymore. Alright. Oh, it is just being kind of slow. I don't know why it was being slow. But let's go ahead and hit play on Tomb Raider and see what it does. Alright, let's hit display. Full screen, 1920 by 1080, that's good. And let me just hit play. I forgot that window exists. I shut that off the last time I played this so long ago. And here you can see that it's working exactly like it's supposed to. Fallout 3 may be one of those titles that is not compatible, but let me do a quick search here. Okay, so just a quick search on the Steam forums. It looks like after I have installed Fallout 3, I have to download Games for Windows Live and install that as well. And then it requires a little bit of manipulation to get Fallout 3 to run. Alright, let me just hit new game here. Create a new save. I'm not sure what's... Let's just hit normal. had a little bit of a stutter there, but I think that was because I'm streaming it. So far so good though. It doesn't look like anything is really messed up here. Can I skip the introduction? Just make this go a little bit faster, because obviously this is a mix of video and gameplay. It's kind of funny that she made it to the island, but when you're playing the game, if you end up in the water, that you die every time. It's just really funny that they have those conflicts in the story. All right. Huh. Okay. I'm like, I don't remember them teaming up in the beginning. But that's okay. Alright, but here you can see that I didn't have to do anything special for this to work. And most games you don't have to do anything special. Alright, I must be hanging upside down. Let me go ahead and exit back to the main menu. But that is pretty much it for gaming on Linux if you have Steam. I still have some things to learn, like I have Epic Games library. I don't know how to use Epic Games on Linux, so I don't know how well that works. And then there's other things like my Blizzard collection that I use Lutris to play. But the last time I looked, Lutris was not easy to install. Lutris actually had to be done manually on my last version of Linux. But let's go ahead and run Superposition real quick. Oh, sorry. I is one folder too far back. Oh, I always forget that you have to do that dot to run things from your current directory. Alright, so we're going to do 1080p medium, leave everything defaults. And here you can see, without even having to run it, that it detected the 8 gigs of RAM like it was supposed to. So that's another place where you can see it's just kind of a display disparity. So I don't even need to run this one to see the memory. That's actually why I downloaded these two particular benchmarks, because they show off that display disparity pretty well. Okay. So let me go ahead and go into my web browser here. Then we're going to just going to search for Fallout 3, Steam, and Proton. And I'm going to use this article right here. Okay, so it says that I need to download this MSI. And I'm going to continue to that site, which is fine. Steam is just warning me I'm going to download something from Xbox Live. So I now have it downloaded and in a folder. Okay, so with that being done, let's close this, and then we're going to come back here. You need to install this library. I'm not sure what they mean. I'm not sure how to follow those steps. So if I hit properties and I hit permissions, yeah, see, won't. I don't know how to install it. Let me see if this gives me some more information here. So it was overcoppered. See Ingu Pin's answer below. Steam apps. So I don't have Wine installed, so I don't know how to just run this directly. All right. So how do I install this into Proton? I just don't know how to run Proton, I guess. Okay. Oh, need one more letter on there. Okay. Yeah. So I guess I need to figure out how to manually whoops. That's going to be my Google search. I just typed it wrong. All right. I'm still looking on my other computer for a quick way to try and install something. I'm a little stuck. I run into problems like this all the time, but, you know, most everything was pretty good. I just don't know how to install this because it's not part of Steam's. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go sudo apt install wine. Not sure how I missed the S there. And I'm going to install these prerequisites. You might be able to install wine from the store too. I just did it from the command prompts. But I'm going to figure out where this file installs to. And then I'm going to copy that file to my Steam library. That way it should work fine. But again, not every game is 100% Linux compatible. So you saw with Tomb Raider, it just worked. It just worked with Slay. It just worked with Fallout Shelter. Let me go to my library here. Come on. Let me go ahead and install Trials of Mana. This one should be another one of those games that just works out of the box. Fallout 3, if you didn't know, in its history, Fallout 3 actually didn't originally come out on Steam. It came out with games for Windows. So it didn't just allow you to play it straight from Steam. And I think that's what's causing the issue here. Well, let's see what we can do here. Yeah, see, I don't know how to install this. So that's going to be a spot where I can definitely do some learning, that's for sure. I wonder... let me see if I just have that DLL on my Windows machine already and see if that's enough for it to work. And again, there's where you can see that I'm using two keyboards, so I'm messing myself up. Just getting confused. All right. Well, I'm not seeing it so far, but I'm going to keep looking. But this is the kind of problem you'll run into when you try and run certain games in Linux. So I think I'm beginning to understand how this works here. All right, let me, I'm going to have to drop to the terminal. It doesn't look like I can do this without the terminal. But let me, Steam library, Steam apps, and then 22,370. Okay, so that is what it's saying. So if I copy this, oops. And I paste it real quick. I want to go mount. He had a 3 terabyte drive of some kind. So I'm going to do volume 0. Then I'm going to export this wine command. But it's going to be home Richard to match my username. Then I want to go cd tilde. I want to go downloads. Okay. Then I'm going to go wine MSIEXEC space X live. So now I'm actually updating the wine configuration. Hopefully I don't get any error, but because we're using the wine version... Oh, maybe I forgot to do /I. I have to install it. I forgot to install it. There you go. So I'm going to go ahead and accept that, and I'm going to hit install. So now it should be installed now. So let's try and see if it locks up again, if I need to do anything else. If that didn't work, then I will go on to the next step where I copy it from the one location to the next. There we go. So again, Fallout 3 didn't work because of Games for Windows Live was a requirement that I ended up having to install manually. But now Fallout 3 is working. So that probably is going to be a similar issue to any Games for Windows games that you have. Looking left at my shelf, I see a Lego Indiana Jones. I see my Fallout 3. Both have the Games for Windows logo on it. I see a copy of Crysis that I own that has the Games for Windows logo. And Fallout New Vegas also has the Games for Windows logo. So in my library, just from what I can see, I have 4 games that require Games for Windows Live. But now I'm actually in Fallout 3, and this is going to be kind of annoying because I can't really play the game until I go through that initial part of being a baby. Alright. Let's try and up. Looks like I can't skip this part. Looks like James in the background there, my doctor. Can't remember her name. It's been a while since I've played. But at least, even though I'm a baby, we'll be able to see the engine load and work. Yeah. I can't get along any farther. Sorry, I'm doing a little bit of texting. All right. Let's make my name Richard. And we're going to say okay. Sorry, I was using my phone and not paying attention to the screen. But again, you can see that this is working fine. And provided that I set everything up right, we're just going to take everything at defaults because I'm not going to do anything right now. This is a bit slower than I anticipated. And I don't think you can hear the sound. I definitely can't hear the sound. I had it shut off, I thought. All right. There we go. So now we're in the engine, and you can see that it is running fine. Let me do a quick search here. Come on. All right, so let me hit tilde and see if the Oblivion, whoop. So that turned on debug text, but I don't see it showing the frame counter. Can I save it right here? Yeah. Let me save it right here real quick. And we're going to call it new save. And then I'm going to quit the game real quick because in Steam itself, we can get rid of this now. We can get rid of this now. In Steam itself, if I go into the settings, there should be an in-game FPS counter. So I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to put it in the top right in a high contrast color and say OK. And then let me go back up to Fallout. Oops, too far. Go back to Fallout 3. You know, one thing I haven't been doing is looking to see if there was any chat, and there isn't anything in chat, so that's fine. Alright, let me hit play. And there you can see it is hitting the max counter of 60 FPS up in the upper right corner there. So let me go ahead and load that game, and so that we're actually in the vault and in the engine, not just the menu. This game is pretty old, so it should stay at 60. Why can't I just skip all of this stuff? Alright. Let me escape out of that one and quit. Alright, so there it is. There is me installing Pop OS, an OS which I have never used before, and then figuring out how to install Steam and everything. Move to trash. I installed Steam. I installed Games for Windows Lives manually, unfortunately. That was the only hiccup, but I didn't expect that. But it gives you a viable option for those older games that aren't supported in the Windows platforms anymore, and it provides extra security because your Windows OS is actually good to go. Oops. All right. So I think that's it for now. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this live stream, but definitely leave in the comments if you have any questions. And like I said, this was a start-to-finish experience. You saw it was pretty easy. I only dropped to the terminal a couple of times to do some stuff that I needed to do with those benchmarks, and then installing Wine itself was a waste of time. I just needed to try and remember how to use Wine through Steam and Proton. And so on that forum post when I first read it, I was a little bit confused, and after thinking about it, processing it through, I realized that it was telling you which game to modify, which which version of Wine to use, your Wine path, so that when I ran it, it modified my Proton config. Oh, and one other quick thing that you probably should know, there is a way for logging in Proton, but it's not enabled by default, unfortunately. So if I go into Home, I need to type my path. Is there a way to type my path here? What if I just click here? What if I click here? No. Alright. Let me open .steam manually. Whoops, I forgot to tilde. Don't judge. Oh, okay, so I can't do it that way. So I don't know how to do it in here, but in my distribution I can click and actually type. I just don't know how to do it in here because I've never used Pop OS. So let me drop down. I need to go into the hidden Steam folder, not this Steam folder. So let me open this in a terminal real quick. So there is a hidden Steam folder here. And once you enable logging of Proton, the logs will show up here. But you have to go into the Proton directory. So it's I thought it was under Steam Apps. Oh, it's under Steam, Steam Apps, then Common. Oh, whoops. As you can tell, I'm not a very good typer. And using two different keyboards is confusing me. Then it should be Common, yeah. Okay, so in your home directory, there's the hidden folder Steam, Steam Apps, Common. And if I do a double list, you can see I have Proton 3 and Proton 5 here. So if I change directory into Proton... Oh, doesn't like that. We're going to go into Proton 3.7 first. You have this user settings sample.py. So you want to move that file just to user settings.py. So once you do that for each version of Proton, it will start to log. Whoops. What did I do? I don't know what I did. I hit something and it made it go wonky. Alright, so now I'm in Proton 5.0, and you can see it's still got the same user settings sample. So we're going to move user to user settings.py. Okay, so now if I drop back, oh, that doesn't work like that, huh? Alright. That's it. I'm fired. I can't type anymore. Okay, so here you can see there's no log files, but really quick before I end this stream, let me go back into Steam, and I'm just going to launch whatever game my library is on. So it's Fallout 3, since that was the last one we did. I'm going to quickly open it up here. I need it to initialize a couple of things, so this will just take a second. But once you rename those two Python files, you get logging in your home directory under the hidden Steam folder, not the non-hidden Steam folder. So I know it can be a little bit confusing because Steam put two Steam folders in your home directory, one with the dot in the front, and then after you go into that hidden Steam folder, there's a second Steam folder. It's actually quite obnoxious. But I don't know why they did that. It's just what they did. Alright, my face is showing again, so I can't see what I need to see to get rid of this. Okay, so now when I do LL, I thought it was right here. Am I in the wrong spot? I don't remember how to do a wide listing. I thought it created... Oh, it's in my home directory. I'm looking in the wrong spot. You can see right here on my screen where it showed up. So let me go ahead and close the terminal. So Steam app ID 22370, that's how you can tell what your log is. You need to know your game ID. But because I renamed those two Python files, it did create this log. And so you can see what's going on. That way, if you're having problems with your Steam games in Proton, you can rename those two files. The first one, the Proton 3.7, is the Steam compatible games as far as they know, and then Proton 5 is just the latest version. I don't know if Steam uses both versions by default, but because I checked that box in my Steam settings that said enable Steam Play for all games, including anything not listed for version 5, that's what it did. But this will help you figure out what might be going on. And you can see there's some stuff that's going on that's not working, some non-critical errors and things like that. But definitely keep that in mind. Oh, and Trials of Mana did download. So just real quick, for the sake of simplicity, if I open Trials of Mana, it should set it up and just run the game. I shouldn't have to go through any setups. Again, Fallout 3 was a fluke because of that Games for Windows requirement, which on a Windows machine is easy to fix. You install the game from Steam and then run that executable. It just was a little bit more complicated here because of running it through Proton, that version of Wine. This will just take another second or so. And one thing I'm not sure about is I did sync my save games, but It doesn't look like any of them synced over from Fallout. I don't know if I just didn't give it enough time, or that doesn't work because they're not supported on Linux. So that'll be something that I need to look into. Come on. And there you go. So there wasn't anything else that I had to do, even for Trials of Mana, which is a brand new game. And you can see we started at 30 frames per second, but we're currently at 61. It does not appear to be frame limited. I've actually been having a lot of fun with this remake. I have all three games, Secret of Mana, Final Fantasy Adventure, and Trials of Mana on my Switch. But I also have this game, the remake here, obviously. That's what you're looking at. So this appears to have synced my games because I'm at the end of the game here. Here you can see that I've beat Anise, and here I'm playing through again. But let's go ahead and load that up. So it is syncing my games. I just don't know why it didn't sync some of that Fallout stuff. Could be because I've changed computers 2 or 3 times and they're not in the right directories or something like that. Ooh. That was kind of sluggish there for a second, but let's not go that way. Let's just attack these guys. Let's see what we got here. Oop. Sorry, that was kind of dizzying for me. I got turned around and lost right there, but that's okay. I forget the dodge key. I haven't played this in a couple of weeks. Alright. Let's walk up. Oh, I can't get that treasure chest, but you can see we're running at 60 frames per second. I don't know what that initial stutter was, but I escaped from that battle. So there you go. For the most part, you don't have to... For the most part, you don't have to do anything special once you get Steam installed. So with that, I really am going to end this live stream now. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.